Blue Bloods Season 13 dropped in October 2022, and it has been making rounds among the fans for some of the positives and some of the negatives as well. A character's disappearing act left Blue Bloods fans surprised and angry at the same time because no one wanted them to go. In this video, we'll talk about Blue Bloods' mistake in the Season 13 premiere episode and much more. Let's begin. First up, fans aren't impressed with one character's disappearing act. Everything was going smoothly, and the fans were eagerly waiting for their favorite show to come back. But something happened in the premiere episode that they didn't like at all. Frank Reagan, one of the main characters of the show, just disappeared. He went away for an assignment with Archbishop Kearns. Now, the problem isn't that he went on an assignment with Kearns. The problem is that he left his cell phone behind. Now no one can contact him or talk to him. Fans are scratching their heads and asking, why did he leave without a cell phone? While all of this was going on, Frank's son Jamie was also shot. He was shot while working on a domestic violence case. What surprised fans the most is that it's Frank who has disappeared. He's the one who fans least expected to do something like this. This moves completely against Frank's values and his character. Frank is the commissioner of the New York City Police Department, so it's his responsibility to make him reachable at all times for his police officers because anything can happen when you're in the police. He's one of the most important men in law enforcement. Fans aren't impressed, Frank. It wasn't a good move. Up next, Frank has a lot going on for himself behind his back. Frank's disappearance will affect many people who are related to him, and this is the main reason why the fans are angry. His two kids will be greatly affected who have no idea where their father is. He also has a grandson on the job who needs him, and Frank's elderly father. When you have so many people counting on you, you at least make sure that you're reachable at all times. Plus, he's the only guy who they call in case of a terror attack. Coming up, fans consider Frank's disappearance as a cheap trick by the writers. When you're the writer of a show as big as Blue Bloods, you want to provide ultimate suspense and drama to your fans, which is totally understandable. But you can't make moves that will leave the fans angry, just like this one. A lot of fans have labeled this act of suspense and tension from the writers as a mistake and as a cheap trick. Fans believe that a man like Frank would never abandon his family. He's much better than this. A lot of fans have used different social media platforms to make their frustration and anger clear. One fan on Reddit said that Frank would never ever leave his family like this without any way to contact his family. This plot twist isn't believable at all, they said. Another one said that while there's a need for dramatic plot twists in shows, but something like this looks forced and just out of character for Frank. These statements clearly show that the writers have made a major mistake, and the fans clearly aren't with them. This may not affect the viewership of the show, but it still is a big mistake. Next up, fans also made their way to Twitter to make their anger clear. A fan took to Twitter and said something that really impressed us because it was so on point. The tweet said that all writers need to be more careful when they're writing about and handling such big characters like Frank. Frank's action felt out of character, and that really bothered me, said the fan. And it's absolutely right what the fan said. When you're writing about one of the biggest and most important characters of the show, you can't do something like this. And that too with a guy like Frank? Really? If it was someone else, it may have been understandable. But this isn't something that Frank preaches, and this isn't what his character is like. Now, a lot happened in the premiere episode. A lot has happened in the premiere episode of the show with Frank's disappearance and his son Jamie's shooting injury. Jamie was shot by Andre, who then managed to successfully run away. Also, Erin was so sad and disturbed about the fact that her last words to Jamie were in the form of an argument. But everything's fine as Jamie did survive the shooting. Now that the writers have made this mistake with Frank, it's time for them to redeem themselves and gain the trust of the fans back. They can still make things right by writing some kick-ass stories about all the other important characters on the show. All's not lost just yet. All they have to do is just stay true to what their character's personality is, and then just go with it. They now clearly know what happens when they try to do a big experiment. We're hopeful that in the future, they'll avoid doing something like this. Moving on to who might replace Frank as commissioner. First up, Jamie could be a good option. Well, if we're being totally honest, we think that the best person to replace Frank as commissioner would be Frank himself. It sounds funny, but it's true. There's no one on the show who can do a better job than Frank. But if someone had to replace him at all costs, it could be his son, Jamie. He's the only one in the Reagan family who can replace him. Making Erin the commissioner would be completely opposite to what she is as a character. And she's doing a great job in the district attorney's office. Danny also isn't suitable to take this job, so that leaves behind Jamie. He's a sensible guy, and we think he can do a good job. A fan also took to Reddit and posted that Jamie's the best option to replace Frank because he has a level head. Leading 50,000 people, including 36,000 police officers, isn't an easy job. It requires requires true determination and loyalty to the uniform as well. Jamie, being a trained Harvard attorney and a police officer, can prove to be a valuable commissioner. He has the skill set that's needed to pull this job off, and we think he would be the right option. But there's one problem though. Jamie doesn't have a lot of experience with police work yet. He's very new to this job, so he still needs to gain a lot more experience if he is to lead thousands of uniformed officers at some point in the show. Next up, Abigail Baker. The commissioner isn't alone when he's doing his job, because leading thousands of officers isn't a one-man job. You need all the help you can get, so you appoint responsible people around you. Frank has a number of advisors who help take the best decisions for the police department, and inside his group of advisors, there's one person who can be a perfect fit for this job. You could argue about Sid Gormley. He's a great guy who's committed to the police, but just like Danny Reagan, he's a hothead, and you need someone calm as the commissioner, so he's out of the question. Another option is Garrett Moore. He has spent a lot of time working for Frank, and we have no doubt about his abilities. But Moore has worked as Frank's connection to the press. Moore can be a great politician, but we don't think he'd be the right choice for this job because he has no experience in police work. That leaves us with Abigail Baker, who we think would be the perfect choice to replace Frank out of these three people. Why? Because she has all of the experience in the world, and she also is very calm and composed when making big decisions, and that's exactly what this job requires. Let's look at Vincenzo. Apart from Frank's close circle of people, there's also an entire chain of command who works underneath him. These are the people who work under Frank on a daily basis who have the required experience and can offer a lot to the commissioner's office. Now, one thing we know for sure is that if Frank himself had to choose someone to replace him, he'd most likely choose Abigail Baker. But that isn't the case. He doesn't get to make that choice. The mayor's the one who chooses a police commissioner, and we think that the mayor will appoint Frank's number 2 in command, Vincenzo, as the police commissioner. Although Vincenzo hasn't been seen since season 1, he can be a blast from the past if the show decided to bring him back. It's weird though. He's technically Frank's number 2 in command and has also served as interim commissioner in season 1, but he hasn't been seen since. It's like he doesn't even exist. He took the role of the interim commissioner in episodes 14 and 15 of the first season of the show, and that's the only time he appeared on Blue Bloods. But he's still the obvious choice to replace Frank. Who better to give the job to than the number 2 in command? Finally, Frank isn't going anywhere. We can't imagine Blue Bloods without Tom Selleck, and we're sure that none of the fans can too. So if you ask us, we don't think that Frank's going anywhere. The Reagan family dinners would just be like normal dinners without him. The Reagan family will have no one to give them the guidance they need in their life. He's just too important to this show. And luckily, Selleck has also confirmed that he isn't going anywhere. This means we can enjoy Frank Reagan for a few more years. He was talking to TV Insider about season 13 when the interviewer mentioned that creators are planning to take this show to 15 seasons and asked him if he'll be a part of the show. To which Selleck replied, "I've got a mortgage. I'm game." This is the perfect news for the fans. This news made our day. That's a wrap for this video. Who do you think will replace Frank as commissioner if there's a need? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you at the next one.